call her my Nana. We would walk over this footbridge a lot. I would walk along with my grandmother, and we'd stick to this main path. She would always tell me how lovely this park was, and I don't think I was ever very convinced by that. To me, it just seemed like a random Scottish park just outside Glasgow, Glasgow being the largest Scottish city. A fairly run-down park, nothing particularly exciting about it. All this slush underneath your feet because it rains all the time in Scotland, and everything being damp and slushy.
Good morning.
I don't think I ever told my grandmother that I didn't particularly like the park or anything like that. Also, I loved walking her.
Good morning.
Morning. Come on, this
We always had a great time together. This is the first time I returned to this park on my own without my grandmother. I tried to film some of the slushiness and the ground. I filmed this just yesterday because it was the only nice sunny day in my 10 days over in Scotland for Christmas. The weird thing happened that the more I walked into the park, the more I started to somehow appreciate it for the first time. With the sun beaming down, more or less at lunchtime, with these rays of sun penetrating the foliage and the trees, it almost started to look enchanted to me. Now, I don't know if it really looked enchanted to me in a subjective way, but I really do believe that something happened to me. I believe strongly that I started to see the special aspects of this park. I started to maybe see what my nana had been trying to communicate to me all these years. She loved this park, and obviously because of her eye problems, we had to stick to the main path. We couldn't really go venturing too much. But I went through these gates and up to the top. I started to see some beautiful things. Like this tree. I don't know if the tree is...
Have I seen anything
wait.
nice? So many beautiful little bits hit by the sun. Lovely, lovely, lovely bits. Have you seen anything nice?
A nice local woman speaking to me.
Unusual birds
Okay.
that I hadn't seen, kind of the size of a finch. The markings on there are absolutely stunning.
Okay. Nice.
So I had lots to see in the park.
Nice. Take care. Bye bye.
Like that tree to me just looked objectively beautiful. Looks objectively beautiful. This little passage that obviously I couldn't have walked down with my grandmother, I was looking at it with fresh eyes. Some neat little boulders, nice colours. It'll be interesting for me to know if other people looking at this also see the park as looking relatively special and interesting, as I can now see it in that way, or if people just see it for being the way I used to see it. This unexciting, random Scottish park full of slush and humidity and dampness. My nana used to tell me about I think a great uncle, a great uncle, who was working as a driver for the local rich people who were in charge of this house. As this was all private terrain, and there was some large mansion, almost like a small castle, that I briefly filmed there, where the local rich family lived. And apparently, this is approximately 100 years or more ago, being the driver, the private chauffeur for such a family was considered a very good and interesting job. Here I'm trying to make my way through some passage, and then I eventually popped out onto this mossy stone bit. It really is bizarre when something that you've seen many times before and you've never fully appreciated it, and you were always somewhat doubtful of people that were saying nice things about it. All of a sudden now, because the circumstances have changed, then I'm looking at this park just now with fresh eyes, and it looks really magnificent to me. And a sort of unassuming beauty. An absolutely unassuming beauty. Several people even told me to not take my camera to this park because it could get stolen, because Scotland in general is a place where at least some people don't like to take things like cameras or other expensive equipment outside because of this almost like train spotting like climate where junkies or violent people could steal it from you. And these ideas just seem in such contrast with these images of stillness and beauty, almost timeless beauty. The thing about violence and paranoia, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the more people repeat certain things like don't go to the park because your things could get stolen, then the more other people start to interiorate these ideas as well, and it creates this climate of paranoia where it doesn't promote creativity, it doesn't promote normal people using a park in a normal way to just enjoy or to film. And then it means that these territories are just in the hands of the real violent people. I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems to make sense to me. It's almost a philosophy of defiancy. To try and err on the part of optimism almost. To think that things will be okay. And it's better to take a few risks, as long as they're not too large, in order to just have a nice day in the sun in Scotland and to do some filming. And actually the local people, just like that nice woman and everybody else that's passed me, just saying good morning, a few people were encouraging me, telling me to, as that woman said, about the nice little birds and the nice corners and the nice parts of the park, and people seem to be really encouraging a relatively young guy going there on his own and filming. And I like that, rather than people perpetuating paranoia and ideas of violence which maybe real or maybe partly exaggerated, and yeah. So this concludes this whole part of the park that I never really used to get much access to because of walking with my nana, and that we had to stay on the main track. But here I'm coming out of that slightly alternative part of the park, and I'm back onto the main track. And I'm visited by a little squirrel, a grey squirrel. That's what a Scottish squirrel looks like, and that's what another Scottish squirrel looks like. Quite strong, quite chubby. Apparently there used to be only red squirrels back in the day, and then somebody imported the grey squirrels, or at least that's the story that the locals say. And then the grey squirrels were just more equipped and stronger, and they basically bullied the red squirrels out of extinction. So that was that park. It's called Ross Hall Park, and it's about half an hour from Glasgow city centre in Scotland. I chose to conclude with this image here of that's the path that would take me back home, that I walked many times with my nana. Just 5 minutes from her house, and just this unassuming beauty of this very standard Scottish park. I hope you enjoyed that.